just went out again. So just let me know. Happy today. I am William Brown from IamWilliamBrown.com. This is Disconnect to Connect, one word conversations. One word conversations is a self-discovery, relationship building conversation. It is brought to you by IamWilliamBrown.com. IamWilliamBrown.com is a place to help you be yourself and live your life. One way that I spotlight what's available at IamWilliamBrown.com is our U-cards. Our U-cards can be purchased at the I Am William Brown store, and they are intention setting cards, and they are a game. So go to it. So this is going to be a fun conversation, because there's some technical things that we're working through. But the three cards that I've pulled for this is I am curious, you are worthy, and I think you should just do it. And I think you should just do it is telling me, even though that we're having technical problems right now, I am still going to be in this conversation and see how it goes. I guess image just went away, so we can go from there. This is the moment where I invite you to share, comment, subscribe, do all those things that lets me know that there is value to these conversations. As I introduce the word today, stability, which I find it very ironic, is because there's a level of instability that is happening in our technology right now. But maybe that's why the lesson of stability is coming up right now. So I'm going to do some things. The show will kind of look a little different, but we're going to go with that and see what we're going to do. So, good morning.
Good morning. How are you? Or at least from my end, I can say good evening.
I am doing. Oh yeah. Good evening. You are on a different part of the world. I appreciate the globalness of this conversation. This is the time when I invite my guests to introduce themselves, however it feels comfortable to them.
Thank you so much, William, for having me. My name is Mercy Sitima. I am a creativity coach. I work with leaders and those who express themselves as leaders and creative leaders at that. So what I do ideally is walk them through the process of being unstuck, finding their true self, and also increasing their productivity, because there are many things that can cause us to get stuck, that can cause us to be who we are not. So basically, that is what I do with my clients.
Well, thank you very much, and welcome to this conversation. So the question of today is, how does the word stability land for you?
And as you mentioned earlier, the irony is our network has been very unstable.
Right.
And we had technical issues. But the whole idea is, when I hear stability, I don't think of it as an external element. I think of it as an internal element. That means despite what is going on around you, you're able to still stand your ground, do what you need to do, and not be swept away by what is happening around. This is a clear example.
Yeah, and it's amazing that this is playing out for us in real time. And I the first my first impulse with stability was and having the technology challenges that we're having, it was, all right, let's just not do the show, right? It's like it's just not going to happen. It's like maybe this is just a sign and all that other kind of stuff. And I like what you're bringing to the conversation, saying that it has nothing to do with what's going on around us. Stability has nothing to do with that. It's more of the internal thing. And the more that I trust um, my desire to have this conversation, my willingness to have this conversation, and stay within it, no matter the stability around me or my impressions of what's happening around me, it really doesn't matter because I'm stable within.
Yes, and really this depends on the interpretation, because the first time you hear stability, you think a certain way of life. But in reality, who sets those standards? Who decided that is what we define stability as? And many struggle with trying to get to stability. It can be financial stability, it can be emotional stability, it can be mental stability. We struggle with it because we try to do it the way someone else has done. But
Right.
dynamics individually are very different. And there are factors that affect how we react to whatever is placed in front of us. So when I was thinking about this, I thought more of an internal work.
Hmm.
I thought of where we are able to take responsibility and not put blame on whatever is happening around us.
Hmm.
And thank you for agreeing to do this despite our challenges.
Right.
I think the stage was clearly set.
Right. It's really, I think this has been a very interesting week for me, because there's been, it's been, there's a lot of reflection, and the conversations that I have are self-discovery, so to learn more about myself. And so sometimes when we learn something about ourselves, I'll just speak for myself. I go, huh, that's interesting. It's like, I didn't think that was in there. But the fact that um, I guess the default was to kind of give up when I felt that it wasn't stable. There was no judgment around that. It was just that was just the first response.
Yeah.
And it's like too often, sometimes um, things happen, and I say we give it reason instead of saying that, oh, um, there's a reason for that, and it's the reason is it's telling me that I shouldn't do it, or it's telling me that that we should try again later, or so, all those things, all those stories that we make up within that. And I love how you say that it's what we're told about stability, what other people, what it means to them, is sometimes we bring that on to us, and it has nothing to do what we believe about it. Uh, so
Mhm.
yeah, so that's great.
Yeah, and to be honest, it takes a lot of self discovery, a lot of introspection for you
Mhm.
to get to a point where you realize, wait, the problem is not the goalpost. That
Hmm.
can be shifted at any time. The problem is how I'm able to respond to the change that is unpredictable, to the situations that I do not have control over. I
Right.
have control over how I react. Then, how then do I master the art of being able to be stable enough or have that balance where I'm not swayed by whatever is happening around me? So I think it's a learning curve, and we should not be super guilty
Right. Hmm. Yeah.
because that is life. We have to continue learning from day to day. Yeah.
Yeah. It's that ongoing life lessons that we have. And I think for me, there's sometimes um I was thinking, I don't want to go to school today, right? Yeah, as a kid, right? It's like, but life, the lessons just show up, even if you want to show up to them or not, right?
Yeah. You that is life. You do not pick what is thrown at you.
Right.
you you really just decide. It hits you the first time, sends you to the ground. The secret is now creating a relationship with that ground and deciding you do not have control. I may calm down several times. but I need to figure out how I'm going to get back up.
Right. There is one of the cards that I picked today to set the tone for this conversation is curiosity or curious. I am curious, and so curious is one of my core values, and so sometimes that that helps me out, and sometimes it gets me into trouble. But the one thing that I am curious about how you show up in the world and what are the things that you're doing is how stability shows up within your work around creativity.
Mm,
Because creativity is it's such an empowering thing, but it kind of for me it like drives me crazy, right? There's like it's just not stable, type of
yeah.
thing. So how does being creative and harnessing your creativity show up with stability?
I think when it comes to how you show up in life, when you talk about creativity, everyone is creative.
Mhm.
There's this notion that it's the musician who's creative, or the writer, or the visual artist. But really, creativity is innate. It's
Hmm.
just a matter of how are we going to harness this? How am I going to master what I've been given? So, when it comes to stability, it does not mean creativity masters me. I
Hmm.
master creativity, or rather, I create room for it. That
Hmm.
means in whatever you're doing during the week, create a time where you can allow yourself to play, where you can allow yourself to experiment, and where you can be curious,
Hmm.
as you just mentioned. So it's not something that comes and bombards you and you're thinking, what in the world is going on? I'm just
Right.
trying to be creative and it's overwhelming. No, it's giving yourself permission to do something outside your space without rocking your boat.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that is it's kind of funny. I just noticed the handprints, the artwork behind you. I was like, "What is
Oh,
what?" It's like I just got distracted for a moment. It's like, "Oh, that's just great." It's just a lovely background there. But like I said, sometimes I get so distracted because I'm trying to do this podcast thing and trying to stay focused and trying to worry about all this other things that are going on, and I miss the things that are right in front of me. And I think especially with what's going on in the world. I don't know how much the global pandemic has affected you or your family or your country, but
mm,
by any means. But there's a sense of the uncertainty and the instability of life and how we show up in the world, and I can definitely, there have been moments for myself where I am still calm in spite of all the things that are going around me, but sometimes it feels like I am shaken, because of the level of inconsistency or uncertainty or the instability that I think that is going on out external. And it's like,
mm,
even though I recognize that a lot of my strength is the inner work, um, it sometimes it just gets so hard to kind of look in and kind of settle yourself when there is so much chaos or perceived chaos around.
mm. I think especially 2021 being one of those years that decided to take a lane of its own.
Right.
And that was for everyone in the world. People had plans, there was agendas, governments had plans, and then all of a sudden there's a pause button.
Hmm.
I think the first thing that you need to do, or at least that I got to do, is to sit down and allow yourself to accept what is going on.
Hmm. Great.
Because you can decide to go and ignore what is going on, but it won't go away. You first have to accept, okay, fine, this has disrupted my life.
Mhm.
What am I going to do about it? But you have to give yourself room to be able, and that flexibility to be able to navigate to the next phase. So once you've given yourself room, it can be a day, it can be a week, it's different for everyone.
Hmm.
Then you're able to have that quiet time and even sit with your thoughts. The world is it's loud, a lot is happening, trying to capture your attention. For once, you're like, you know what? I need to sit with my thoughts and figure out what is going on. I need a strategy. What are we going to do with this?
Right.
So you find by the time you're able to navigate that, you have internal stability. You're
Mm.
no longer faced by the announcements that come up every day, the numbers that are coming up because of the pandemic, because it's scary. And the first time there was a lot of fear, but it does not mean you ignore the facts. It just means the facts do not determine your reactions and how your life turns out.
Right.
So when you're able to sit and do that, then you can see other options.
Hmm. Yeah. I think the one thing that really resonated with me, what you were saying is, you started off with, allow, there's an allowing of life to show up. And too often, I reference everything as a pre-pandemic, right? That
Mm.
I would, I was like fighting life. I was kind of, there was always something that I had to, everything was a fight, right? I got to fight to do this. I got to fight to do this. And there were many days where I felt that I wasn't winning, right? Or I couldn't win and all that other kind of stuff. And then, how this pandemic is showing up for me is that the more that I allow, and accept and have this awareness of this is what's happening. This is now a part of the equation. I think there is I've used it. I've said this before because this happens many times. For me, Mike Tyson has a quote attributed to him that everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face, right? you know, and it's and 2020 has punched me in the face and kind of hit me in the in the shoulder and the neck, right? On the side, and it's just like, okay, what we doing now, right? So it is really, what am I going to allow and what am I going to accept and now allow to be a part of this equation so I can bring, I don't know if it's a sense of stability outside of myself. I mean, it's
Mm.
like, I think the more that I show up as stable, whatever that means, and I think we get to decide that, right? The more that my environment kind of calms down, my environment, kind of spreads out. Like I said, but sometimes it feels like overwhelming, and like I'm not winning.
But the reality is, it's just like swimming.
Hmm.
When you have fear and you're in panic, that is that is when you drown.
Hmm.
Because remember, at that time, when you panic, you use your energy. You're trying to swim, but you're not using the right technique.
Right.
The same way when the waves come, you have to figure out how to ride the waves, because
Hmm.
at times they are bigger than you. That means your effort is not enough.
Hmm.
And one thing we have to make clear is allowing is not giving up.
Hmm.
There's a difference. Allowing is saying, okay, fine, this wave is bigger than what I would have done. Me fighting is draining my energy and I'm going to lose my mind.
Right.
But I'm going to allow this wave to ride and I'm going to step back. What can I do differently? What
Hmm.
can I use to my advantage? That is when you find, even with the pandemic, there are people who've discovered different talents. There are people who've started different businesses, and nothing is permanent. You might be down right now. It does not mean you won't get back up, but you
Right.
have to accept and say, you know what, and pace yourself. And you're like, you know what, things are bad right now. I'm going to pace myself, look at the statistics, look at what is happening around, what has happened in the past with such pandemics. You're like, okay, fine. I'm going to give myself a year, or
Hmm.
I'm going to give myself 2 years. Doesn't mean that you're giving up. But
Right.
in this time, I'm going to make sure I've done something that when I look back, I'll be proud of what I've done. It may
Right.
not be in the same line I was in before, but it's not, I can't say it's, you can't write it off as nothing.
Right.
It also brings us back to appreciating the small steps, to appreciating the small moves, because we had grand plans. And then the storm comes. What do? You
Hmm.
have to sit back, re-strategize, and decide, okay, fine, I'm getting back into this fight,
Right.
but it might be in a different way, different weapons,
Right.
but eventually I'm going to win.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of reminding me that there are moments when it's raining outside. I have these plans, right? And then it's raining, and then it's like, oh, it's raining. I can't do what I wanted to do today. There's sometimes I show up that way, and there's other times where it's raining and it's like, I don't care, it's raining. This is what we're doing, right? Right? It's just kind of go. And I think that's why I really was I really got what you were saying about um it was reminding me of one of my favorite poems that's of called "Do It Anyway."
Mm,
And it's like show up. It's like Mother Teresa. It's like, you may build something and somebody may tear it down. Build anyway, right? You may say something and people don't understand, but say it anyway. I mean, it's like really um, have the level of I think it is stability, and there's courage and there's awareness. There's all those things that's connected that builds the house and the foundation of stability, that the more that we have awareness of ourselves, we can be ourselves and stand up within
mm,
ourselves. There has been so many times that I look at my life and look at some of the things that I thought I was going to do or started to do that stopped because there wasn't a clear understanding. There was an understanding of the idea, but there wasn't an understanding of who I was going to be in executing that idea.
mm,
Does that make sense?
yeah,
And it's like, because I didn't have that understanding, there was no stability. There was no foundation,
mm,
able to have that happen. And the more that I um, am willing to shore up the stable parts of my life, because it's already stable. If I embrace, and which I do, that I am whole and complete, I am
mm,
whole and complete. Period.
yeah,
I just need to be reminded, of that, so I can show up, as stable,
mm.
and with stability.
And this comes up a lot, especially when I work with creatives,
Mm,
because that is a space that not necessarily come out the way other people come out. For instance, when we have a hit record, we see the end product. When
right.
we have a best-selling, book, it comes out. That is an end product.
Hmm.
No one really shows you the process.
Right.
And the process is ups and downs. No one tells you about performance anxiety. No one tells you the struggle of figuring out the business side of your gift.
Right.
So stability may not be the same for you as it is for me, but
Right.
in the results, it will show up as stability. That means today was a bad day for me. I was just feeling like, okay, fine, I'm not going to get out because it's raining, as you mentioned, as long as I do not allow it to be a habit.
Hmm.
This is going to affect my end result.
Right.
Today's a bad day, I'll accept it's a bad day and I'll let it happen. But at the end of the day, I'll be like, okay, fine, we're done. You need to get up, you need to get back on the road.
Right.
So even with that, even when you're building something, when you start, you do not have everything. The vision grows as you move.
Hmm.
So giving yourself room to grow is what now gives you that sense of stability. You're not working with fear, you're not working with doubt. It's a matter of balance. Balance
Right.
doesn't mean things are on the same level. It means at times one thing is high on the equilibrium when the other is lower, but at some point you have to switch.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, um there is a quote that I will promise, I will make a public promise that I will write down the person who put this quote together, because I use it so often and I can never remember his name. But it says that, if you can see the path, it's not your path. Your path is the one that you're creating. And I was reminded of that when you were speaking, that we grow as we go, right?
Mm,
As we are creating and moving in our path, we are growing. We
mm,
are strengthening. We are, there was a lot of things that I was feeling, that, you know, just like embracing that. And too often, I'll speak for myself. There have been so many things that have stopped me, that have caused me, if it was the rain, if it was, a troll on the internet, if it was, it was, if there was something, a misunderstanding, a loved one that said they didn't want me to get hurt, or, and it's all of that thing. Here is something, because I was a theater major in college, and then a minor, and and I've I did some performing arts type of thing.
mm,
And I was always, there was a question that always had about being creative, in the creative mind, and that the fact that, um, we see it before we do it, right, type of thing, and that process. And so we see it in a certain way, and it looks great, and it's look wonderful, and we want to share it in the world, and we want to bring it to life, and all that other kind of stuff, and create it. But when we, um, put our humanity to it, basically, what I believe our humanity is our choices.
mm.
When we put our choices to what we see, what we see in our mind, sometimes it doesn't show up totally the same way. And then for me, it feels like, oh, I've done something wrong, or it feels like I'm not, and I'm starting to hear myself. I don't know, but it feels like I'm not. I've missed it, type of thing. So I guess the question that's coming to mind is that, how can we, be confident about that in work, right? That level of self-confidence that we get in what we want to bring into the world, and then at the same time accept it if it shows up a little differently than we see it. Hopefully that made sense to you.
Yeah. And maybe you can, I think, okay, maybe you can rephrase it because I'm trying to to summarize.
Yeah, I think, I have convinced myself sometimes that I am sure there's a certainty about something,
Mm,
and then I do it, and then it doesn't work out. Then it's like, oh, I guess I wasn't certain. I guess it wasn't as stable. My plans weren't as solid as I thought they were.
mm.
Um, I guess the question is, I have how can we have the level of certainty or consistency, or, the belief that things are stable, and still allow movement or different to show up in what we're creating.
I think this comes into your planning and the goals that you set.
Right.
You can
Okay.
have short-term plans and long-term plans. And in the same manner, there'll be fails and there'll be successes. So when you're doing something and it did not fly, it did not work out, you go back to the drawing board and pick the lessons that you had in that failure.
Hmm.
Because we've really termed failure as the worst thing possible.
Right.
But in reality, failure is part of that process. If you do
Right.
not embrace it and learn to dissect and see what you did wrong,
Right.
then you do not grow and progress. So if I have a long term plan and I did it today, did not work, I do it tomorrow. The only way I'll not be phased or get destabilized is when I compare that with my long-term plans. I'll be
Mm,
like, okay, fine, this was a bump in the road. It does not mean I park my car on the side. It just
right.
means I slow down,
Hmm.
re-strategize, change gears, and then keep
Right.
driving.
Right.
But we get destabilized when we are not looking far ahead.
Hmm.
That project or whatever you are doing, it was an end in itself. So that when you start feeling like, oh my goodness, I failed, everything is over, the world has fallen apart.
Right.
But we have to look at it as a journey. We
Right.
have to look at it as um, another example is it's a battle that failed, but the war is not it's not yet over. We'll
Right.
get there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think you've helped me on that. The thing that I got from that is the long I too often I am looking for short-term stability, right?
Mm,
And it's like, I do something and I want it to be a success or, right now, right?
mm,
And the more that I embrace the long-term goal, the long-term what does long-term stability looks like?
mm,
I think sometimes long-term stability means a level of consistency that I'm willing to go back when I hit a bump in a road, right? When
mm,
things don't go totally as planned. And there's just so many things. I don't know if it's a cultural thing, but there's so many times that in my mind, I know failure is a part of success, right?
mm.
Um, but we are so results driven
Yes.
that we think failure is the result, right? Right?
Yes.
Yeah, but not a part, of. And so yeah, so it's like long-term and short-term stability is it's like, what are you looking for? And I think that's a key, or it seems like that's what's coming up for me.
Yeah, I think that is true. It just reminded me of the events that I've planned that failed because I have a background in events management.
Mm,
Those events that really terribly fail.
right.
You're like, there's nothing you would have done to salvage it. It was just bad. When I look at that, the first time it used to get me depressed.
Mm,
But over a while, you look at the pattern, you're like, oh, this event whooped me. But it is not a reason why I should mess up relationships. It's not a reason why I should stop in my journey. So I started allowing myself, yes, I'll feel bad. I'll give myself a number of days. I'll
mm,
be like, I'm going to mourn this failure
right.
for this amount because at times we are required to be strong and we ignore what we are going through.
Right.
I'm like, oh, I'm going to feel bad for this particular time. But after that, we've done the review meetings and what went wrong. We have to think of what to do next. So it took me back. And I'm like, yes, failure is not the best of experiences. But in hindsight, that is what gives us experience. That is
Right.
what gives us wisdom for living. That is what allows us to be better than the next person. It's
Right.
not because they were perfect or excellent. It's because they were able to navigate their failures and doing it consistently over and over with the goal in mind. That is where now we see the stability.
Right. Wow. Yeah, I have a history of being a hotel AV guy, right? So yeah, so I have some successful and unsuccessful events that I was a part of. Right? So I totally get what you're saying. It's like, you tested that AV stuff over and over again, and then it didn't work. It's like,
Mm.
good Lord. It's like you have to wait until all these people get here, right? You know. But so yeah, and it's like, I think the other thing that that I just got out from that event story is that we can do everything right. We can do everything that we know to do, and it still not work out. And it
Yeah.
has nothing to do with our worthiness. It has nothing to do with our stability. It has nothing to do with our completeness. It's just
Mhm.
that's just what happened, right? And
I think,
yeah.
sorry,
Oh, go ahead.
it brought something to mind where the word that we love to use in the business world is the staying power.
Hmm.
For you to have staying power, you should you you should have definitely stayed a while.
Hmm.
You should be able to
Right.
call that word and use it. And this means failure comes, but you do not personalize it to your character unless it's something that it's a flaw that you ignore, or it's a blind spot that has been pointed out and you decided to live with it.
Right.
But mistakes happen and failures happen, but that staying power and even that success comes in navigating that failure and saying, okay, fine, this didn't work.
Right.
What am I going to do? How am I going to improve on this the next time?
Right.
And you're able to look back and say, okay, in the last 5 years, I had several failures, but look at the successes. You'll not have the successes if you stop at the failure.
Right. Mm.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I think really, um, how stability is showing up, for me again is, I don't want to say it's like always present, right?
Mm,
We had um, a word probably a week or so ago. I think the word was control, and it's
mm,
like even when we believe that we're not in control, we still have control.
mm,
And that I'm sure that messes with you, right? Because it's like, wait a minute, I don't have control here, but I have. If I have a choice to make a different decision or to do something
mm,
else, I still have control, right? And
mm,
so for me, what was coming up is stability is that even when I feel unbalanced or it doesn't feel like, success or all that other kind of stuff, I can take action or I can do some things to stabilize myself within all of all of this.
mm,
I just got an image of, being on the boat, and it was because when you said something earlier about, it's like swimming, and it's, if you're panicked and everything like that, you'll drown. And I was like, holy crap, I'm not a good swimmer, right? So so it's like, okay, I got to learn how to swim, right? Right? It's like, and just kind of going through that. But I just saw this image of me on a boat, and it's like there's sometimes where you can feel the boat moving, and there's sometimes you can't, because you stabilize yourself, right? You're stable.
mm,
You find a way, and you're walking and you're moving to kind of go with it, to allow
mm.
the movement and what's happening, and for you to go along with it. So I need to have those boat moments where I can just kind of say, okay, this is a little easy right now, but let's just get my bearings, right? Get kind of go with this, allow this to happen, so there can be a level of stability and it can get stable in here.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing you mentioned about control.
Hmm.
Um, I believe it comes down to decision making. I
Hmm.
remember there's a time I used to be okay, I'm still very sensitive. I'm the kind of people who's worried if everyone else around me is comfortable, to a
Right,
point that I forget about myself.
right. No, I,
But
I
when I
get
was younger, I could I used to get affected a lot by people's words and what they say. That time I did not have the knowledge or wisdom to understand they are projecting what they are going through.
that.
So whatever they threw at me, I accepted it and it affected me.
Hmm.
But it takes a decision.
Hmm.
At one point, I was like, I'm done. When I'm frustrated, I do not come at you. So I
Hmm.
will not allow you to come at me.
Right. Yeah.
You're frustrated. It's okay. You can look for a mountaintop and scream your heart out. When you're
Right.
done, Come, let's have a conversation.
Great.
But, but I will never have gotten to that level if I had not gone through the hardships and the emotional turmoil, because I'm an empath. I take on everything that everyone else is going through.
Hmm.
I realize at some point, not my circus, not my monkeys.
Right. Not my circus, not my monkeys. I love that. But
Yeah.
it too often it feels like, yeah, I think I hired these monkeys, right? So maybe, or something. It's like, or I said something and now they think they're mine, right? Or something. But yeah, I really, I really believe that we can talk about this for hours,
Yeah.
um, but is there something that you want to leave everybody with, or something that has come up within this conversation that you just feel like, okay, if you haven't heard anything else, get this from this conversation.
I'll say give yourself permission.
Hmm.
What we said before was allowing. I have a coach who mentioned it as giving yourself permission. Give yourself permission to fail.
Hmm.
It does not mean you are a failure. It means this is a bad experience. It's an event for now, but I can pick up things and start again. Give yourself permission to, it's 2020, things are crazy.
Right.
Give yourself permission to take a break,
Hmm.
take a step back, evaluate, look at the bigger picture, and to strategize.
Right.
Because the world is wired in very fast movement. There's that grind, there's that hustle that we always have to keep moving. But everything, even cars, they need servicing.
Right.
So it's okay to take a break. And that is where creativity comes in. At times, you may not be able to get away, but creativity comes in doing something different. Do something that you did as a child, or do something that is out of your comfort zone. Experiment. It doesn't have to be, it's not a project,
Right.
it's creativity. Do art, even if you're really bad at it. It's
Right.
just an outlet and it's therapeutic. So
Hmm.
give yourself permission to go through the process so that in future with the goal set you can look back and say, yes, we made it this far, and now you can see the successes and celebrate that. But you need
Wow.
to be alive long enough to get to that point. The pressure of the chaos around you can crush you. We need you.
Right.
So please don't let that crush you. Allow yourself to be flexible enough to move around the storm so that when everything has come down, at least you're still standing. You may not be at 100, you might be at 80%, but you're still there. Yeah.
Great. Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. I hope you can stay in the green room for a moment so we can say our goodbyes there. But this has been a lovely conversation, and I appreciate, I guess, our willingness to stay through the instability of our technology to have this conversation, because it was great.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. All right. I am going to do a couple things. It feels like I need to do this. There's just a lot more buttons that I needed to push than normal, but it was great. I think the image of the boat, and stabilizing myself on the boat, and sometimes it's not even a drastic thing that we do. What do we do to get stable, to find or have stability in our life? What do we need to do? What are we willing to do? And I love that, there is there is a sense of giving yourself permission to fail and to really, um, be okay, and that your how stability is showing up in your life has nothing to do with your worthiness. I'll say that again, because I needed to say it for myself. How stability is showing up in your life has nothing to do with your worthiness. And the more that, we're willing to be with stability and instability, and connect it to the long term stability, then it will show up fully for you. I hope this conversation has brought value not just to your day, but to your life. It is my goal to have conversations like this to transform how we communicate with each other. I invite you to reach out to iamwilliambrown.com for a free coaching session and just to see how I can help you be yourself and live your life. Because the world wants you, the world needs you, and the world is waiting for you. So go be you. Have a great rest of the day, and I'll see you tomorrow on One Word Conversations.